A seismic shockwave just ripped through the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. Tehran has officially declared that it executed a devastating direct strike on the crown jewel of America's military footprint in the region, the sprawling Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Iranian brass are already taking victory laps, framing the barrage as an overwhelming military triumph, and boasting that their munitions pulverized critical American infrastructure. According to state-run broadcasts out of Tehran, this was no mere fireworks display for the cameras. This was a surgical, calculated hammer blow aimed straight at the central nervous system of U.S. military dominance in the Persian Gulf. Almost instantly, global news chyrons lit up. Iranian outlets are shouting from the rooftops that a swarm of ballistic missiles pierced the skies and, more importantly, found their marks. Military hardliners in Tehran are framing this as the ultimate wake-up call to Washington, a fiery proof of concept that absolutely no American installation, no matter how heavily armored, is out of reach. But before we peel back the layers of Tehran's bold claims, break down exactly how this unprecedented assault reportedly went down, and look at the Pentagon's official pushback regarding the wreckage at Al Udeid, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you are always front row for the most explosive geopolitical maneuvering on the planet. According to the narrative pushed by Iranian officials, this bombardment of Al Udeid wasn't an isolated tantrum. It was the latest, highly calculated phase of a sweeping retaliation campaign in the boiling standoff between Iran, the United States, and Israel. Top Iranian commanders are adamant. They unleashed a coordinated volley of precision-guided munitions with the explicit mission of dismantling high-value military assets. State-aligned media networks wasted zero time churning out communiques, insisting that their warheads successfully leveled critical sectors of the compound. We're hearing murmurs from their camp of direct hits on operational hubs with logistical arteries allegedly suffering catastrophic structural failures. The message Iran wants the world to swallow is unambiguous. Their ballistic muscle is flexing, and they are fully prepared to shatter the illusion of American military supremacy in their backyard. Now, let's be perfectly clear. The sheer gravity of targeting Al Udeid cannot be exaggerated. Tucked just southwest of Doha, Qatar, this colossal facility isn't just a desert outpost. It is the beating heart of U.S. air operations in the Middle East. It houses thousands of American service members and operates as the grand chessboard for the Pentagon's regional footprint. Every surveillance flight, every fighter patrol, every mid-air refueling tanker, and virtually all top-tier intelligence gathering is orchestrated right here. The base is quite literally wired with bleeding-edge command centers that dictate the pace of warfare across multiple countries and active conflict zones. Because of this undeniable strategic pedigree, Al Udeid has always been the ultimate prize, a glowing target on the map in any hypothetical doomsday clash between Washington and Tehran. For years, Iranian generals have rattled their sabers, warning that America's Gulf bases were sitting ducks in the crosshairs of their missile silos. Today, if you believe the dispatches out of Iran, that theoretical nightmare just clocked in as reality. State-controlled television in Iran is painting a picture of total victory, describing the barrage as a crippling haymaker to America's regional war machine. Officials are leaning hard into the precision aspect of their arsenal, bragging that they successfully circumvented some of the most sophisticated, multi-billion-dollar air defense nets the U.S. has to offer. The storyline curated by Tehran has two distinct flavors: strategic and symbolic. Strategically, the goal was to blind and paralyze U.S. flight operations. Symbolically, it was a fiery demonstration of consequence, punishing what Iran categorizes as hostile aggression from the U.S. and its allies. As word of the attack bled across borders, the entire Middle East collectively held its breath, shifting into maximum alert. Gulf leaders are currently sweating bullets, acutely aware that dropping explosives on a facility as pivotal as Al Udeid is the kind of spark that ignites a very large, very uncontrollable powder keg. Military tacticians and defense analysts immediately scrambled to map out the fallout. Let's be real, if Tehran's victory lap holds water, the strategic ripple effects are staggering. Again, Al Udeid isn't just a runway, it's the nerve center. Crippling its infrastructure means grounding operations, suffocating mission timelines, and completely scrambling the tactical playbook for U.S. forces region-wide. Iranian spokespeople are not letting off the gas, continually hyping the sheer scale and sophistication of the launch. They are insisting these missiles were engineered to ghost right past Patriot batteries and defense radars. Iranian pundits are practically gloating, pointing to this as undeniable evidence that America's regional armor has a fatal weakness. The underlying threat broadcasted from Tehran is loud and clear. We can touch your untouchable bases whenever we choose. For a few tense hours following the Iranian broadcast, a heavy fog of war blanketed the international community. Geopolitical analysts, investigative reporters, and terrified diplomats scrambled in the dark, trying to separate propaganda from pavement. And then, Washington stepped up to the microphone. The Pentagon confirmed the terrifying basics. Yes, hostile munitions were indeed hurled in the direction of Al Udeid. But here is where the narrative splits right down the middle. The American military's after-action report paints a radically different picture than the apocalypse being broadcast in Tehran. According to U.S. defense officials, the base's protective shield worked exactly as advertised, successfully swatting multiple incoming threats out of the sky. While officials concede that intercepted debris and shrapnel rained down within the wire, they are standing firm that the actual damage was purely superficial. The official line from the Department of Defense is blunt. The base remains fully operational, the core facilities are untouched, and the mission continues. This assessment is a direct, calculated slap in the face to Iran's claims of catastrophic triumph. According to the U.S., there was no catastrophic failure of infrastructure, maybe some scattered debris, maybe a near miss, but the beating heart of Al Udeid never skipped a beat. What we have here is a classic high-stakes collision of two entirely different realities, and it has thrown the global security community into a fierce debate. In one corner, Iran is parading this as a historic masterstroke that humiliated the American empire. In the other corner, the United States is shrugging it off as a failed, toothless temper tantrum thwarted by superior technology. Look, in the theater of modern warfare, this kind of rhetorical tug-of-war is standard operating procedure. Both sides are desperately trying to engineer the optics. Iran needs to project lethal deterrence. Looking weak isn't an option for their domestic or regional standing. Conversely, Washington must project an impenetrable shield to reassure jittery allies. By admitting some shrapnel fell, but emphasizing that planes are still taking off, U.S. commanders are sending a subtle but lethal message. You tried, you failed, and we are still here. Yet once you strip away the spin from both capitals, a chilling, undeniable truth remains. This strike represents a terrifying escalation. Taking a shot at Al Udeid crosses a massive, glaring red line. When you target the undisputed heavyweight champion of U.S. military real estate in the Middle East, even a minor strike carries an earth-shattering symbolic weight. It fundamentally alters the calculus of how ugly this conflict might get. Right now, behind closed doors, military architects are dissecting every microsecond of this engagement, figuring out launch vectors, testing the response times of the defense batteries, and hunting for exploitable blind spots is now the absolute highest priority. The Gulf is littered with American outposts, and their survival is suddenly the most pressing item on the Pentagon's desk. Meanwhile, diplomatic backchannels are undoubtedly melting down. Host nations are terrified of becoming collateral damage in a widening war. Qatar, previously a comfortable landlord to U.S. forces, has abruptly woken up in the absolute dead center of a generational geopolitical firestorm. And don't forget the financial sector. Energy markets are watching this with white knuckles. The Persian Gulf pumps the lifeblood of the global economy, and missile trails over major oil hubs are a surefire recipe for unprecedented market volatility. Whether the physical craters at Al Udeid are massive or microscopic, the geopolitical craters are already deep. This audacious move proves the standoff has mutated into a phase where apex military installations are officially on the menu. Will this trigger a catastrophic domino effect, or will emergency diplomacy manage to put out the fire? That's the multi-billion-dollar question. But make no mistake, this assault on Al Udeid will go down as one of the most nerve-wracking inflection points of this entire saga. Tehran is screaming that it landed a debilitating blow on the chin of the American war machine. Washington is casually brushing off the dust and telling the world the base is open for business. Somewhere in the murky gray area between those two extremes lies the absolute truth. And the world is currently holding its breath, trying to find it. As more intelligence surfaces in the coming days, governments will be studying the wreckage to determine exactly how the regional balance of power just shifted. For now, the globe is locked in a staring contest. Forces are staged, triggers are prepped, and the true fallout of the Al Udeid strike is only just beginning to take shape. Security hawks are flashing red warnings that this exact type of kinetic exchange is what accidentally sparks a catastrophic, all-out regional war. Optimists are praying that both capitals are just throwing heavy punches for the cameras, satisfied with their messaging, and desperate to avoid the actual apocalypse. If nothing else, this entire ordeal is a masterclass in the terrifying evolution of modern missile warfare. Precision ballistic tech is the great equalizer, allowing nations like Iran to project devastating force hundreds of miles away without ever putting a massive air fleet in the sky. It is exactly why the U.S. and its allies pour billions into the very sky shields that were just put to the ultimate stress test. Make no mistake, military academies will be studying the telemetry of this night for decades to see how these systems perform when the alarms actually sound. The international pressure to cool this off is immense, but the fuse has absolutely been lit. As of this moment, Al Udeid holds the line, according to Washington, even as Tehran claims they shattered the myth of American invincibility. When the dust finally settles and the classified briefings leak, we'll know exactly what happened during the barrage that just shoved the Middle East to the very edge of the abyss. Stay tuned for further updates as this explosive story continues to rewrite the geopolitical map.